The government's hostile environment for migrants in the UK is a national scandal. The experience of the Windrush generation have shown us that the government's policies discriminate against Londoners who have a right to be here and leave vulnerable people without access to essential services. London draws strength from the contribution of migrants who make the city their home. Migrants bring economic benefits to the capital and enrich our city, bringing cultural energy to our shared identity. But many, including thousands of children and young people who have grown up in London, face barriers to accessing their legal rights to citizenship and residence. This affects their ability to vote, access higher education and work, hold a driving licence and open a bank account. I know from my discussions with London's employers that businesses are concerned about London becoming less attractive to European and international talent. They're also worried that the political climate is damaging to London's reputation as an open, innovative and liberal economy. I share this concern. We know that European Londoners have experienced feelings of being made unwelcome, discrimination and experienced hate crime following the EU referendum. We also know there is a slowdown in European workers arriving in London for work. And recent analysis by Deloitte suggests 65% of highly skilled EU nationals working in the UK now find the country less attractive. This poses serious risk for London's economy, which relies on access to an international pool of talent to prosper and grow. Many of London's sectors rely on migrant labour to grow. For example, construction and hospitality are two of London's fastest growing sectors in the last few years in terms of jobs, but almost a third of jobs are filled by EEA migrants. Government must now take steps to avoid permanently harming London's and the nation's economy.
Well, thank you for that answer, and I very much agree with what you say, and in particular the scandalous treatment of the Windrush generation isn't just an appalling way to behave towards people who've lived here and worked here for decades perfectly legally, but it also demonstrates yet again the government's hostility to immigration. As you say, London's dependent on migrant labour, both from the EU and beyond. How can London's migrants be reassured of their welcome and future status here as against the government's hostility?
Well, I think we've all got a responsibility as Londoners to reassure our neighbours, friends and family members who are EU nationals that we value them and they're welcome here and they make a massive contribution to our city, notwithstanding some of the things national politicians may say. It's really important. Why? Because it's who we are as a city, not just over the last 40 years, but the last 1,000 years. We've been open to people, ideas, trade and talent. We've got to make sure that doesn't change. But you will know from the conversations you have that some of our neighbours, friends and family who are EU citizens are feeling scared, vulnerable, anxious, because they've seen the way the Windrush generation have been treated and are worried they could be treated the same way in the future. And that's really important that we make them reassured. At the same time, I'm lobbying the government, as I know the Assembly will want me to make sure they understand why it's important that any process that's put in place for EU citizens to become naturalised here is simple and straightforward.
Thanks for that. And isn't it the case that the cap on non-EU skilled migrant workers reached its limit for the fourth month in a row in March, when 6,000 requests for visas for skilled workers was turned down, including 1,518 doctors, so that businesses wanting to bring non-EU workers to the UK now have to show salaries in excess of £60,000, and more than 80% of professional jobs actually pay less than that. And with 600,000 jobs in London carried out by non-EU workers, especially in hospitality, construction and tech, where 1 in 4 startups are co-founded by EU migrants, there's a real risk, isn't it, that the government are both misleading businesses by their claim they can access talent from non-EU countries, but also their hostility to migrants threatens us with the loss of our existing EU skilled workers, even before Brexit, never mind afterwards, because they see the writing on the wall. So
you've got a situation where you've got almost a perfect storm where there is evidence now of EU workers leaving London, going back to inverted commas country of origin. There is evidence now of fewer EU citizens coming to London, but because of the hard cap the government has on non-EU workers, we now know that businesses and the public sector are missing out on workers they need to do the jobs that need to be done in London. And you mentioned construction and hospitality, but doctors, teachers, we've got a shortage of. I saw recently, for example, that the Home Secretary had a request made to him from NHS employers about the need for a relaxation of the visa rules so skilled doctors could come to London. Big issues around teaching, of course, as well. And I think the government's obsession with the numbers is having an impact on not just people's lives, but also businesses and the public sector as well. It's a classic example of cutting your nose to spite in your face, and I'd ask them to reconsider. I'm hoping a new Home Secretary will try and exert more influence on the Prime Minister, because as you will be aware, all this began from when the Prime Minister was the Home Secretary.